they will all have to face the music.
That's right. Oh, I can hardly wait for the day. We'll put Schwarzkopf and Powell and everybody else in there, too, for Gulf War illness, too. Everything will become clear someday. Let me ask you also, when you talk about Madoff being he's a throwdown right now. I mean, they're not throwing him under the bus. They're protecting him. They're putting him there in front of the judge. They're letting him plead guilty. And you're saying that he's pleading guilty because they don't want all the depositions and all the evidence to come out, correct?
Exactly.
And all the people's
and
names.
the next step is he'll go to prison, and they'll give him a long sentence probably.
In a high rise in Miami, probably.
Well, I don't think it'll be that. It'll be one of the government-sanctioned country clubs for white-collar criminals. Mm-hmm. And what'll happen is in about 6 months he'll die. And, of course, he's not dying. He hasn't died. He will not die. He will be shipped down to Paraguay or Israel or one of these places that they hide people, that they don't have laws which allow us to communicate as to who's in their country.
Oh, man, he is making way too much sense. You need to get the International Forecaster. Go to the website, sign up for it, ladies and gentlemen. You need it. We'll be right back. 3 minutes. Stay tuned. I'm going to take a couple of phone calls. We are going to be having Jim Motika joining us in the next hour to tell us the information he learned about the pandemic. Now, this is the inside information about the gearing up for the pandemic. You want to hear that. So stay tuned in this next hour. You can go to today's guest, click on the article that he has written, along with the PowerPoint presentation that came from one of the companies that's going to be involved in this. But we are talking to our guest today, Bob Chapman. You got to get this newsletter. I mean, it puts it all together so you don't think you're so crazy if you listen to television. TheInternationalForecaster.com. Call 877-479-8178, 877-479-8178. And Midas Resources phone number, 800-686-2237. Now, I cannot tell you enough how much I enjoy reading his newsletters, but he talks about how Uncle Bernie Madoff is going to be joining the likes of Ken Lay, Tim McVeigh, and Saddam Hussein, of those people that are supposed to be dead but alive but supposed to be dead. Now, I want to ask you, because I've not heard anyone else say this, but I felt the same way about Ken Lay. Could you just address that real quickly before we move on? Because I want to talk about Tim Geithner and who this man really is in just a second. But you're the only one that's put it all together with Ken Lay being one of those guys that is supposedly alive but dead but alive.
Well, this call comes back all to putting logic and reason aside. You have to be able to understand that there, in fact, is a conspiracy which exists to formulate world government and world power. And you have to work that into the equation. And it depends upon who the players are. Sometimes it's blameless, but other times it's not. And what I mean by that is, who is Ken Lay? He was a very, very close confidant and advisor to the Bush crime family. Mm-hmm. Now, that alone speaks volumes. It's like, was he the sort of like a godfather? And I think that might fit him. Well, you don't have a scandal, which he ran with others, and you don't allow the godfather to go down the chute. And so they just plan a death. And everybody says he's dead, and Ken's sitting in the luxurious surroundings in Paraguay, mm-hmm. or some other place. Maybe he's had his face changed. As you know, many of you probably don't know, when you get into your 70s, you lose your fingerprints. Interesting point of view.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until just recently. But anyway, they change everything so that he can't be identified. And he lives out the rest of his life not having to have been kept in prison all those years, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so these are phony deaths. And they do happen. I mean, we have a group of people behind the scenes who can accomplish almost everything. The only thing that they've never been able to accomplish over and over and over again is being able to affect world government. And that's what they're going after again.
That's
and
right.
They're going to be unsuccessful again because, just quite frankly, the undertaking is too great for anybody or anything on the face of the earth. And, it gets more difficult all the time.
And it would seem like it would be an impossible task, but it seems like they're bringing it together. I was going through some of my books yesterday, and I saw how far back the New World Order and the global order is talked about in all of these books. It's amazing. Let me go to a break is where I'm going to go right now. 1 minute, 10-second break. We'll be back with Fred in Philly, Renee in North Carolina. We're probably not going to have much time for phone calls, but the number is 800-259-9231. And Jim Motika is going to be joining us to talk about the inside information on the alleged pandemic. We call it alleged because, well, they're probably making it. We'll be right back. 1 minute, 10 seconds. Hey, Bud, Bob Chapman is here. And I love it. It's a breath of fresh air because he makes sense. He says, no, here's what's going on. Don't pay any attention to television. Here's what's really going on. And he's usually he's only about 99% right usually. But he's working on that. Anyway, welcome back to the Power Hour. We got 3 callers that want to talk to him. Let me go to Fred in Philly. Fred, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Bob Chapman.
Hi. I want to talk about the Madoff scandal, the fact that it's got to stretch back to the 70s. It also has to involve lots of people. It seems that everyone has gotten away. The information has gotten away from us. And also the SEC settlement with Madoff. I don't think that's available. They have a few blurbs, a few excerpts on the SEC site. But the SEC and its pathetic investigation is nowhere to be seen, and the settlement is nowhere to be seen. We really don't know what the
okay, let me get your. I've got a whole bunch of callers here. Let me get your response from Bob Chapman. Anything you want to say, Bob?
Well, he's right. And the SEC is a criminal organization. It works with the government. It works with Wall Street. The only people it pursues are the little guys. The big guys are left alone. Scams like this are allowed to happen because of the tremendous amount of money involved. They're getting paid off just like everybody else, one way or the other. And I think they're one of the main culprits in this particular case. Whether this goes back into the 70s or not remains to be seen, but I think it was ongoing for about a dozen years. And, of course, it was probably years in the making as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much for the phone call, Fred. You're watching and paying too much attention here. Renee in North Carolina. Renee, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I find this tendency that people tend to focus on the executive branch and the congressional branch. We talk about Obama and the rotten Congress. But I think we're missing a big point here, and that's why I'm really glad to see Judge Napolitano getting so involved with Ron Paul. He brings something to the table, his knowledge of corruption. The thing is, none of these other branches of government could be corrupt if the third branch, the judicial branch, was not corrupt. This is what allows all this to continue, and I think we need to shine the light and focus on the corrupt judicial branch, from the cops to the lawyers to the judges to the attorney generals to the very top, because that is what allows all this to continue.
Thank you very much for the phone call. You are way on topic, way on target there, Renee. John in Michigan, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I just want to thank your guest for all he's done. I've used him a lot for references, Bob.
Isn't he wonderful? Yes, thank you.
And Joyce, it's just something with the Missouri issue. A friend of mine up here who is a friend of Greg Neuendorf, who's the NAIS person up here. You know Greg.
Oh, yeah.
He sent an email to the state police in Missouri, and this is a special forces guy, and he was an assassin down in South America. He's told the state police guys he must be a terrorist. Well, they contacted the FBI here in Michigan, and they had an interview with him here in northern Michigan in Bel Air last week.
With Greg Neundorf?
No, with our friend Kent McNeil, who's also, he's a land rights person, very strong in land rights and very knowledgeable, but he might be someone you might want to have on. And,
okay, call the Power Hour and give them the phone number so I can follow up on that. Thank you very much for the phone call. I appreciate it. John in Michigan. I don't know if you want to stay on and hear what's going to happen in this next hour or the next 5 or 10 minutes. I think that will give you a good idea, Bob Chapman, how the pandemic is starting to come together, because this is pretty frightening stuff. And now new information saying from Security Bank Info or Bank Info Security saying that the financial crisis is going to make the pandemic worse, Bob Chapman, thank you so much for joining us in the Power Hour today. If you want to listen for the next 5 or 10 minutes, I'm sure John can arrange that. Bob Chapman with theinternationalforecaster.com. Call 877-479-8178. You are so good, Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll talk to you next week.